Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Title Tuesday. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rebecca Selkirk. I usually stream on the hashtag Chess channel together with the African champion, Jesse February. But today we're going to be looking at some very high-level chess, probably higher than the chess you usually see me doing. And we are doing the Title Tuesday. So let's just run through the format. It is going to kick off in 1 minute and 30 seconds, so starting very, very soon, just as a reminder for how this works. So, it is an 11-round Swiss tournament if this is the first time you are catching Title Tuesday. It happens every single week Tuesday. There's really, really strong competition. And of course, to play in Title Tuesday, you have to have a title. The games are 3 minutes with a 1 second increment, so we'll get a lot of fast-paced action today. And there are a number of prizes up for grab, a very big prize fund up for grab every single week. And we're going to see who will take home the prizes today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Oh, good morning, good evening. I'm coming to you from South Africa, so it is very much evening over here. But I know a lot of you come from all over the world, and it is probably different there. Let's just have a quick look at the people who are playing today. We're seeing some big names. We have Hikaru playing in this week's edition. Jeffrey Zhang, who actually won last week's edition of the Title Tuesday, he's playing and he's currently our second seed. We also have, is it Grigory Operin or is it Operin Grigory? He's playing as well. Cham 2005, a lot of familiar names here. Big Fish 1995. And they're going to kick off very, very soon with the first round. Welcome, everyone. I think we will probably start off by looking at the top seeds. We're going to see if we can follow the level of chess that is happening over here today. And hopefully there will be something quite exciting. Please let me know in the chat if there are any particular people whose games you would like to see, and we can go and have a look at those. And it looks like we're about to start. We have a massive field, 558 players, and the games have begun. We have two fairly well-known players over here. Well, fairly well-known is maybe a bit of an understatement. We have Hikaru with the black pieces against Attila Turzo from Italy, and we know that he is busy aiming to get the Grandmaster title, so he's probably really enjoying events like this where he gets to play against such strong competition. And the time control is slow enough that you can still get some value from these games. Who will beat Hikaru? This is a very good question. We're going to see who will beat Hikaru. They started out, I don't actually know of the name of this opening. It's called the Geller system. And Hikaru is opting for a fairly close structure with the bishop, putting the bishop on g7. But they're starting to open things up in the center, and we will have to see how they are going to proceed over here. Very standard. What you can see is white is getting all of the minor pieces out very nicely, developing them, getting the king to safety. Black is maybe a bit behind on getting the pieces out, but his position is still not looking too bad. So I think let's run through the list. Let's go and have a look at the second game. For now, we have Jeffrey Zhang with the white pieces playing against Cookies and Ice Cream. Okay, what a great username. And it looks like white has quite a nice position over here. I would be fairly comfortable playing this. They're getting a lot of space on the queen side, advancing those pawns. You see black's pieces are all on the first 3 rows, which is not looking too great. But the engine does, we see it still evaluates it as quite equal. I'm imagining here white is probably going to try and start just getting the pieces, maybe attacking the king, going for some sort of action on the king side, whereas black is going to try maybe get this bishop into play. I'm not entirely sure where we would be putting this bishop. If you put it over here, the problem is it's then blocking your rook, and it's just sitting there defending the pawn. We often say that it's just a large pawn, and you usually want your bishop to do a little bit more than that. This square is protected too many times for the light squared bishop to come here. So black's going to have to be quite creative to try and get their light squared bishop into the game. In the meantime, let's scroll down and see Big Fish. Chat can perhaps let me know. Big Fish, I recognize the username. I can't remember exactly who that is. You can hear me, but you can't see anything. I hope that is not the problem. Okay, we've got a game over here, a 2900 versus a 2400. And what you will notice for the first couple of games, you've got the Grandmasters played against lower rated players, the way that a Swiss tournament works is basically they chop up the field in half. So they take number 1 seed, they'll play against the person who's just below halfway on the field. So in the first round, if you're in the lower half, you're going to have a really rough game at the start, but it's a nice opportunity to play someone who's a lot higher rated than you are. And then as we go through the tournament, you'll see that the ratings start to get a lot closer in matchings, because then you're going to be playing against people with a similar score. So all of the GMs will have an equal score and they'll start to play against each other. While those of us who are having a tilted Tuesday instead of a titled Tuesday, they are then going to be playing against other people who are tilting just a little bit. All right, so it's Fedosiv. Fedosiv, 2,900 rating. Let's see if he manages to get to 3,000 today. He will be playing against some very tough opponents, which means there's some rating points up for grabs, which is a good thing over here. If we look at this position, it's giving a little bit of an edge to white. Whereas I will say that if I was playing this game, I would feel quite uncomfortable just because usually when we're learning how to play chess, we're told try and keep your pawns just on these 3 squares. Try keep them back, protect the king, because when you have too much space around your king, that's often when things start to go very, very wrong. So here white is just ignoring these principles, and that's one of the great things about being a very strong player. You're able to know when you can break these principles or not, but it's a little bit more confusing for the rest of us. So white here is now instead pushing the pawns all the way towards the black king, trying to go for an attack, and it seems like it's going pretty well. We've now got quite a big advantage popping up for white. The key is after knight takes e4, we just go back and move over here. When you take with the knight on e4, you're opening up this diagonal for the bishop. So it's why he takes back, whereas it kind of looks a bit more natural to take with the pawn, but we want to bring a piece closer to black's king and then also open up the diagonal so that this bishop can start to take part in the attack as well. And black is trying to play back with some counterplay, but sadly it doesn't look as though it is going to be enough. Very tough when you are playing against a strong opponent who just throws all of their pieces at you and attacks very aggressively. All right, let's go find another game to go on. I think we can probably guess how this game is going to turn out, but we can check back on it a little bit later. We can hop back quickly to the... Maybe we can't hop. Let me just get to my games that I have open. We can hop back to this game over here, which is not hopping back. Alrighty, we shall abandon this attempt and have a look at this game. So we have Rococo from the US. Do you guys know who Rococo is? From America, 2,400, but it's a GM, playing against Aparon Grigory, and we don't even get to see much of that game. That is over immediately. Let's go back a bit and see where it started to all go wrong. There was obviously... Maybe we skip all the way back to when the queens were still on the board. Rococo with the white pieces taking on someone 600 or almost 600 rating points higher than them. Alright, so white was going for an attack. It is often quite a good idea when you're playing against someone who's a lot stronger than you, try and make things complicated. A mistake that I've made before when I've played against very, very strong players is I'm just so stressed that I'll make a mistake that I end up playing moves that don't challenge them at all. And then what happens is you end up in an endgame and you just slowly get outplayed. So white definitely took the correct approach over here. You can see that he was actually winning this game. What the engine gives him an advantage. But obviously things went wrong at some stage and we ended up losing the queen. Okay, there used to be a saying when I was growing up and playing chess, we used to say it is never a free pawn. So here it looks as though you are just winning a pawn, but obviously there are some issues with this. So we think we have 2 attackers and they only have 1 defender. Great, it's a free pawn. But the problem with this, they pick up a pawn on the other side of the board. So always try and focus and check that the entire board is covered. And now this knight is getting into the game. This file is going to be open. And unfortunately, white's attack is over. And I'm guessing it's around about here that we lose the queen. Yes, there is a lovely tactic over here. if you do your puzzle rush, you will definitely be able to spot these in your games. So knight to d3. The key is here, we're attacking the king. Even better is, well, okay, we can take it back with the bishop, but the queen is also attacked. So it's a discovered attack on the queen. You don't have a chance to move your queen away to safety because we're in check. And when we're in check, we have to worry about that. All right, let's go and find out what is happening. It looks like Hikaru has picked up the point. You should be able, okay, you can't see on this leaderboard, but Hikaru has picked up the point over there. Jeffrey won his game as well. Let's go try find a game that is going on. I saw a South African flag. I'm a bit biased, but it seems to have jumped away. Why don't we look at this game? So we've reached an endgame. The players are starting to get into a little bit of time trouble. And white only has a knight left, but black has a knight and 2 pawns. So if we can get one of those pawns even and then just get the other pawn with the king, then we end up getting a draw, because sadly a knight is not enough to win the entire game. But tricky here with white. White only having the knight. Knights are tricky pieces in that there are a lot of checks you have to watch out for and forks. But here both players have a knight, so we're going to see if white manages to withstand the pressure. This knight is doing a great job. It's keeping the king off of f5. If we had illegal moves that we could make, we would want to go king to f5, try go after this pawn. We've picked it up and now this should be a draw. White just has to get this pawn, make sure the pawn doesn't promote. If black pushes the pawn, white just picks it up with the knight. But I don't think black obviously isn't going to push the pawn unless there's maybe a sneaky attempt at getting it through and white maybe doesn't have enough time to notice. But they'll play on for a little bit. Okay, there we go. White managed to pick up the pawn. So well-deserved draw over there. 2,900 versus a 2,400. So that's a very, very nice draw for Niranjan Navalgund from India. 2,471. And we are moving on now to the last game. GM Cantywan said, don't block with your face. Yeah, don't block with your king as well. So you see there, the black king went in front of the pawn, and then when it was attacked by the knight, there's nothing you can do. You can't move the pawn forward anymore. All right, welcome to everyone who is joining. We're about to finish the first round of our Title Tuesday tonight. This is the final game that's taking place. A very strong field, and we've already seen an upset on stream. 2,400 drawing against a 2,900. Oh no, and this is why it is so important to know your endgames. Oh, we're going for the dirty tricks. The dirty tricks don't work though. Unfortunately, black had too much time. I'm not sure if that was a mouse slip or if that was an attempt to just win the black rook. But now it's obviously completely lost for white. And very nice ladder technique over here from GM Mishonik. Is that Alexei Sarin? I'm thinking based on the profile picture, perhaps. This is really, really instructive if you're a beginner player, and I think we can have a look at this while we are waiting. Let me just check as well. There we go. The standings should be... Okay, the standings are being updated as we go along. I will let you know what the scores are. But this is a very instructive endgame. If you get this position and you're a lower rated player, you might not be entirely sure how we should be winning this. And the key thing is you want to do what is called the ladder technique. So try and use your queen and your rook to cut off files so that the king can't go across. So over here now we see the white king can only move in these 2 files. And okay, there we go. Just hopping it up, so now you just go like this, and the entire time when you check, you're blocking off the king's escape route. So the king goes back, we cut off the king's escape route once again, and then the game ended over here. But no matter what white does, we just swing the rook across and we get our checkmate. All right, let's go back to the game. So the second round has begun. We have Hikaru now playing against an IM from... Oh dear, my knowledge of flags. Wait, from Ukraine. It is Valery Grunev playing against Hikaru. The rating difference, you can see it's now a little bit closer. So both of these won their first games. It's going to get more and more tough as we go through the competition. So we started out here. What opening? It was the Polish opening. There does seem to be a lot of Polish involved with chess at the moment. And over here, Hikaru is... Okay, what do we think the plan is over here? It's always a bit of a mystery to try and guess what these top level players are thinking, because they do see a lot further into the position than us. What I would guess is that probably getting a rook onto what might become an open file in future. Maybe there'll be a future e4 push over here. The queen move makes a little bit more sense. Hikaru is getting his queen out of this pin. It's very easy. It's very easy sometimes to forget when you're playing fast chess that a pin exists, and you move your knight to a more active square and just lose your queen entirely. So he moved the queen first out of the pin, and then he moved the knight, getting it a little bit more active. And here he's traded the knight for the bishop, and it looks like it is. Okay, engine gives white a slight advantage over here. Material-wise, we're completely equal. So not too much going on over here, but I would probably guess that maybe white's pieces are a bit more active, or else white is getting the advantage because of this, because of the center. All right, let's in the meantime check in on another game. I'm trying to find some names. Remember, let me know in the chat if there is anyone whose games you would particularly like to see, and we'll see if my technical skills are able to find where they are. I think who we're going to go over to, what about, this looks like an interesting flag. It is Sao Tome and Principe. Okay, so we have I Am Christopher Yu versus OMK124 from India, 25 versus 2800. So this should theoretically go in white's favor if we just go based on rating. Is Faruja playing? I don't spot him on the players list at the moment, but perhaps you guys will be able to do some investigation and let me know if he is busy playing. In this game over here, it's looking fairly equal. Each side has... Oh, white is up a pawn. So white has one extra pawn at the moment. They each have the two bishops. And I think, okay, white decides to take with this. If we go back a move, this is a move that a lot of us would consider. Let me actually try and make the moves on the board to make it a little bit easier. A lot of us would consider this, but then a problem is that after takes, we now have much weaker pawns. So we have doubled pawns over here. This pawn is now further apart. So that is why it's better in this case to do what they did in the game, which was to take with the rook. And black is now going to probably try and exchange some pieces, try and get a draw over here. The lower rated player, they have to go for the draw over here. They are a pawn down. Let's go check in once again over here. So Big Fish versus GM Enchev from, is that Bulgaria? It is Bulgaria. Okay, our flag identification is getting slightly better. I don't know if the African women's champion is playing in this event. You'll have to check in with her, or we can search for some of her games a little bit later. Here there is an overwhelming advantage for black. So some exciting chess happening here. Is that an entire extra rook? I feel like I'm counting wrong. 1, 2. Okay, there is an extra rook for black, but there's one less minor piece. But the problem is white's king is in the middle of the board, so it's looking really scary. How do you try and defend this knight? There must be some mate threats on the board, and there's a mate in 4. Let's see if he spots it. Bishop e2, that is the correct first move. White doesn't have too many options. You can't go here, you can't... There is always the option of resigning, and that is what GM Enchev decided to do. So a win over there. It's very important to win the games you should be winning. So win the starting games. You don't want to lose against someone rated 400 or 500 points worse than you when you're going for the prizes in this event. Let's go check in. I think GM Jocelyn, that is it Jose from Peru, if I'm not mistaken, playing against an IM from Singapore. All right, and it looks very equal at the moment. The rating difference here is 300 points. So let's see if Let's see if our higher rated player, if GM Jaspim, if he's able to push for the win over here. If I'm not mistaken, he is also a streamer. I don't know if he's streaming the event today, but it's tricky. As I said earlier, you want to win the games that you're supposed to win, and there's a lot of psychological pressure when you have a lower rated opponent and it's just dead drawn, nothing in the position for you. So let's see how GM Jaspim tries to make something happen over here, or if he does just settle for the draw over here. The Swiss Gambit, losing your first game in a tournament. I mean, I'm not sure if that always works. It does mean you get easier pairings for the rest of the tournament, but it also means you're having to fight the entire tournament going forward. So we've got an A5 on the board. It's looking like... So Black now needs to decide, do they trade? Okay, has decided to trade over here. And now what you'd like to do is you'd like to play A6, which has been played on the board. And the reason for this... Oh my goodness, we got a flag. You generally think with an increment of 1 second, you're not going to get any flags because you get 1 second added per move, but it's not that much time. So no worries about getting a win in the position, but you can get a win by just flagging your opponent. It's always an option, and that is exactly what Jose does. Very much a flirty dagger over here. What I was saying earlier, just before we move on to the next game, the reason you would push this pawn is to try and fix your opponent's pawn on the same color as your bishop, because you want to try and be able to attack it in future. Whereas if you just leave it, white then has the option to play a6 themselves, and then your bishop, remember bishops can't ever change color, so your bishop is never going to be able to attack that square. In terms of the standings, it looks like Hikaru has won his second game, Jeffrey has won his second game as well. Big Fish, Aparin, so we saw Big Fish's game, Aparin has also won it, so a lot of players still on full score after the second round, but quite a few games still on the run. Shall we head over to... I'm not recognizing any of the games, or any of the... Actually, Sam Chessmood, I think he does a fair amount of chess instruction, so let's head over to his game over here. He has the white pieces, so he is very much on the defensive over here. 2 pawns down, it is completely lost, but he also doesn't have much time. He is playing on the increment, the time getting as low as 0.5 seconds, and we get another flag, so very unfortunate over there. And a bit of an upset, the FM getting a win over a Grandmaster. Let us move on and have a look. There are 4 games still going on in this round. 500. Wait, that is, apologies for that. That was a misclick. I'm not entirely sure what I clicked on over there, but there we go. This is the last game going on in this round. MSB2 from Germany at 2800 taking on a 2500. I am from, I think, is that Paraguay? And we have... It's looking very, very drawn. It is... Okay, all white has to do, there we go, just take the pawn, and it's insufficient material in order to mate. Which means that we have completed round 2, with a lot of people still on 2 points out of 2. We probably have about 150 players still on full score. I'm scrolling down to see if we can see. I see Eric Hansen is playing today as well. Is it Minle? Wonderful Time? He's playing as well. He's placed very, very high a couple of times in the past. We also have Exotic Princess, that's Jabava playing. So we're going to hopefully see some very exciting games as we get closer and closer to the end of the tournament and all of these GMs start playing against each other. All right, the next round, I think it has begun. And it has begun. We have GM Alexander Fear playing against Hikaru. Alexander Fear, he's one of the top, if not the top, Brazilian chess player. He was at the Olympiad in 2018 when I played a couple of years ago. And he's playing against Hikaru now. So big upset if you manage to get a win over here. They've played... What did they start off with? Hikaru really, really likes his g6, fianchettoing the bishop. I'm wondering here, I was about to say, I don't know which side Hikaru is going to decide to castle. He's gone for queenside castling, and there's a very slight advantage out of the opening for white. We're going to see, if it had been opposite side castling, then there would have been some crazy attacks happening. but it's not too late. It's not too late for some crazy attacks to start over here. Hikaru very nicely spotting that the rook is defended. It's always tricky with these pawn moves because it distracts your attention. You're like, what is happening over here? Are they going to push the pawn again? And it's very easy to miss that your rook was then being attacked. And on board 2, we have a very exciting matchup over here. We have Greg Shahadi playing against Jeffrey Zhang. I'm sure a lot of you know both of these players. You've seen them on the Chess.com broadcast before, or just winning and doing really well in events. And currently Jeffrey has a massive advantage over here. Is this a... It's crazy. So the engine said that's plus 2.9, which is almost a 3-point, which is essentially a minor piece, like a bishop. Whereas material-wise, Greg is only down a pawn. But we can see this king is really weak. The rook can't get anywhere because the knight's gone back. So black is not in a very good situation over here. We're going to... I think we'll stay on this game for a little bit just to see how Jeffrey finishes off the attack. Something that a lot of club players do battle with, I battle a lot with this myself, is trying to convert an advantage when it's only a pawn advantage. It's a very small advantage. It's not so easy to turn that into a win. So I think it will be quite useful to see if we can follow and see what Jeffrey does in order to win this game. Yes, so Jeffrey actually won Title Tuesday last week, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see if he's able to defend his title this week and manage to get a win. A very nice thing to do if there are such big names in the field like Hikaru. And the advantage is just growing and growing. There's only one way, I think, to defend the knight, which would be bishop to e8, which doesn't look very comfortable. And Greg has opted to bring the rook across. This looks like a very obvious move. So queen takes g6, you're just winning a knight. It maybe looks a little bit scary that the king goes back to f8. And you might then worry that there's an open file towards your king. So Jeffrey's maybe just calculating, checking that everything works out and that he is going to win this game overall. I imagine... After king to f8, he's blitzing out those moves. He's done all this calculation. We can't even follow. Yes, I was going to say, I guess the bishop h6 is our follow-up, just to keep on attacking the king, not to lose our momentum. And yeah, queen takes over here. And I presume this is to bring another rook into the attack. Okay, so it is advised over here, but tricky to see because it looks as though you're chasing the king further away. The correct way to carry on with this attack is bishop to g6, and then if the king runs away, the engine is suggesting h5, so we're just pushing the pawn, promoting, or perhaps we're just blocking this file, making sure that our bishop is safe on g6 and just stays there forever, and then we can just carry on. We're up in exchange, a rook for a bishop, so everything looks good. Let's go and see where they are in the game at the moment. Have they? Oh, there we go. We missed a couple of moves. The king's now all the way on the other side of the board, but Jeffrey's does still have an advantage. Is up a piece or exchange and starting to sacrifice here. So I think let's go have a look at Kostniuk's game. So we have GM Chess Queen. Looks like she's in a little bit of trouble over here, playing against GM Abdusattorov. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. From Russia, and material-wise is equal, but black has quite an attack going on and was attacking the rook, which couldn't move. What are the other things that are... with equal material, why do we think that this would be going so well for black? I suppose the king isn't looking very safe. Our queen still has a safe square over here. Or perhaps it's this. The chess engine see quite a few moves in advance, and I'm guessing the problem is here if you go back to h6, maybe just g6. We can check if this is the correct line. g6, and you're losing at least a knight, which is not looking great. Here, a crazy non-human move almost. We'll see if Alexandra does it. The non-human move is knight to d6. That's a really tricky move. A really tricky move to do. Let's actually look at that tactic because it is quite a nice tactic to look at. Knight h6, very nicely done. That's another similar idea. The idea is that if the queen takes over here, I mean that just is immediately losing for black. You can stop over here, but it's checkmate. And if they take over here, then you actually once again come out with extra material. Not quite a checkmate, but we will take an extra exchange. So it's check, and okay, that does make sense. I thought it was the other way around. I thought that black had lost the game, that Kostniuk had somehow managed to pull off a win over here, but no. We can go and see what happened in the actual game after we looked at it. Knight d6, she found that move very, very impressive. I said that was a non-human move, but apparently it's just a grandmaster move. So rook went across over here, takes over here, and unfortunately you are just a piece down, and then there's a fork. It is so frequent in chess that you make one small blunder and then the whole house falls down. We just carry on making mistakes. I see our first board game. Is that still going on? Let me try and go back to that. Okay, it doesn't seem to have updated. So I think no, it is still going on, definitely. So we'll try and check in what happens in that game. But here we have I am undisputed versus Opera and Grigori, and it's completely equal, which is a very good result for I'm undisputed because he is a 2700 taking on a 3000 plus. It's always very tricky when you have queens on the board left at the end. So we have, there are just so many checks to watch out for. You also have to be careful that you don't make any mistakes. We had a little bit of a jumping evaluation bar over here. Why is this the case? So queen to f3, and then, I mean, oh, the idea is that if there's a check like and the game is over, they got a repetition with the continued checks. So that's what happened over there. I think we'll come back and analyze this game a bit later if there's nothing else to look at. The Hikaru game has finished. Did that end in a draw? I'm not seeing him at the top of the standings, so maybe you guys can let me know what happened in that game. We do have a couple of games still ongoing. Shall we drop down to some games over here? So we have a 2300 from France playing against a WFM, and okay, the WFM absolutely destroys that over there, getting a very nice checkmate as we tune in. Here we can go across to Crescent Moon versus Bilaleu. I think that's one of Algeria's top players, who's the grandmaster over here. They get a draw, exchanging all of the pawns. And Crescent Moon, I recognize that username. I'm not entirely sure who that is. Did Nakamura win his game? Or was it a draw by repetition? It might just be that the tiebreaks are not updating. I see Grandmaster Hess is playing as well. It's great to see all of these names as I'm looking at the player list. And we have one game remaining. Chessy versus Igor. Chessy versus Igor, knight and a bishop. How many of you in chat are able to do checkmate with just a knight and a bishop? It's the sort of thing that gives me nightmares. Naka's in 10th place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. I'm just completely blind. You know, I wear glasses, but sometimes it still doesn't help. And this game, I presume this one was a draw. Or was it a... No, it was a win. Sorry, black is going to just promote over here, and there's no way to stop it. That's some very good technique shown over here. So you use the knight to block the bishop's diagonal, because if we instead push the pawn, sure, you're winning the bishop. No, bishops don't move like that. You are winning the bishop, but then you have to checkmate with a knight and a bishop with only 17 seconds left on your clock, which I'm sure a lot of us might battle with, unless you've been doing a lot of the endgame training with the new endgame trainer on Chess.com. So let's jump ahead into round 4, and I think there is a break coming up soon. Let me just get a reminder of when the break is going to be. It's after this round. So after this round, we're going to have a short break. The players get to just untilt, recollect their thoughts, go have a bathroom break, tea break, get their coffee, whatever they need for the rest of the tournament. And here we have Hikaru. So he is currently on the leaderboard, 3 out of 3, taking on GM Kuliforik from Russia. I'm not entirely sure which player that is. Perhaps some of you can let me know who that is. And what we've seen from a lot of Hikaru's games is that out of the opening, the engine evaluates it as either completely equal or sometimes he even has a disadvantage, but then he comes back later, which is really, really impressive, and he just wins the game overall. So let's see, queen takes c3. Is that his opponent has now picked up? Okay, hasn't quite picked up a pawn. I thought they were just winning a pawn here. I think you can just take it, and he has taken it indeed. I think we'll try and come back and check on this game a bit later. I'll try find the game when we come back. In the meantime, let's hop over to board number 3. So we have I Am Petriashvili from Georgia taking on Big Fish, 2,800 versus almost 3,000. So let's see who will manage to win this game. We started out with the Caro-Kann defense and the Karpov variation. I approve of that. I played myself, and we've got a quite an equal position out of the opening. No one is up any material, and often when you're playing white against the Caro-Kann, you are just aiming for an attack on the king side. But with this very like fortressy setup that black has, it might not be so easy for white to attack on the king side, because you don't really want to start pushing all of your pawns unless it's 100% safe, because you might start to find yourself in danger. Trying to trade bishops, the idea over here, I presume, is that this bishop is quite strong. It's pointing towards the king, whereas our bishop wasn't really pointing towards anything. So we'd rather trade those off. We give our slightly worse bishop for their better bishop. But no fireworks happening here yet. We'll hopefully catch some fireworks happening a little bit later. Let's go and have a look at this game, where it's Jospin versus Manticore. Manticore is a 2,700, 2,900. We're getting closer and closer in ratings. I think in the 5th round, everyone will be very easily matched, or very equally matched. So some very good games will be happening there, and it will be tough in order to try and get that advantage and get the win. Here things are looking very, very equal so far. We're attacking the queen. Always very important after your opponent's moves is just take a second and see, what is their move doing? Is it attacking our pieces? Is it threatening to do something in future? So it's important to check. Sometimes we do see queen blunders even at this level, so don't feel discouraged if you do it yourself. But a way to check that you're not blundering is just check what is being attacked on each and every single move. White now has a passed pawn, so this should be something that might be good. Could also become a weakness though if it manages to be blocked, and then if we start having it getting attacked a lot. What we can do, I think we can move on to another game. Shall we head over to... Let's go watch Robert Hess's game. So Robert Hess is taking on a Grandmaster, GM Dropstone DP, 2,900. So GM Hess is the underdog over here, but definitely the fan favorite, I would say. And he has the nice open file over here. White, but that is not a good arrow. That is the open file that we have over here. Dropping the bishop back. Where do we try and put this bishop? I mean, if you look at all the squares that the bishop can go to, it's not looking very good. And even if you drop it back, I mean, then it's just blocking your pieces, which is not great. Yes, of course, all of my references to queens being attacked and queen blundering is because I hope that in future I will remember to check if my queen is being attacked. I blunder my queen far too frequently for it to be healthy, and that is why I very rarely play a titled Tuesday, but every now and again I do a tilted Tuesday, where we drop rating points and blunder our queen. Exactly, we can't spell Hess without chess without Hess. That's the way it works. That is the correct way around. All right, the knight has gone to d5. Not an easy endgame to play. This is where a lot of us will start to run out of plans and not entirely sure what to do. We're just maneuvering, and Hess is down on time over here. Everything's now completely equal. So if anyone has a chance over here, unfortunately it might be his opponent with more time on the clock and maybe just like easier defensive moves to make. I think we can switch over and go see what's happening in some of the other games. Shall we go? I keep on just seeing Hess's game now. We can look at, what about this game? The second or the third board? There we go, Fair Chess on YouTube versus Alexander Moskalenko. Two very high-rated players once again. And we have a little bit of a dancing evaluation bar over here. So things are going back and forth. We're dropping a piece over here. It looks like white is up a pawn, but black has this like really, really strong chain of pawns. And if he's able to just push them through, that'll give him a huge advantage. And the extra piece won't be enough for white. These pawns are getting really, really dangerously close to promoting, which always starts to give one an anxiety. White is starting to pick the pawns off one by one. Remember, when you are busy trying to take down your opponent's pawn chain, you always start at the back, and white now has to give up the extra piece. Oh wait, this is craziness. Unfortunately, there are still two pieces over there, but white now has its own passed pawn. How do we defend against this? So we have a check over here. That seems to be a fairly standard move that we can make. Both of them are in a lot of time trouble. 14 seconds to 7 seconds. It's not that much time. In Bullet, that's so much time. You can play an entire game in that amount of time. But sadly, when you're used to Blitz and you're used to getting having an entire 3 minutes and thinking about this, you do then start to panic when you only have a 1 second increment. We're having a little bit of a foot race. White is trying to promote over here. Black is trying to promote on the other side. White decides to just abandon this side. This pawn's going to drop. Fortunately, the king is close enough. But is this enough for the win? I'm not looking at the evaluation bar. It clearly is enough for the win. All of the pawns now fall, and white gets the win by resignation. Very, very good game over there. The lower rated player picking up a win. So once again, a little bit of an upset over there. We can go have a look at some of the other games still going on. Here we have Gina versus Garmanafov. The game is over. It's a draw. We're starting to run out of games over here. Here we have... Okay, I lost. There we go. This is a Spanish streamer over here taking on Spanish fighter. And should be an easy win for white. There we go, it is an easy one for white. It's the easiest when your opponent just resigns. Let's move on and see what games are still going on. This one is also just finished. Just a reminder, we are going to have a break after this round when all the games are done. Are there any games still going on? There we go, we've got another game. 2700 versus a 2900. This should be winning for white. You've got the two pawns. All you got to do is just make sure you can start running the pawns. Oh, it looks like we're going to lose one of the pawns though, so we're making our life difficult, and now it's a draw. Perhaps we should go back and just see how we're supposed to win this endgame. It should be quite instructive. I think you're meant to have your king closer. Very tricky. Okay, this is not an easy, and it's not going to let me do moves because they're just blitzing out the moves as the game goes along. There we go, draw by repetition. Not an easy endgame. This is really a true test of how well you know your endgames when you're playing in these high pressure situations. Less than 20 seconds on the clock, not a lot of increment. You don't have time to sit and just think and figure out what you're supposed to do in order to win it. So we went there from completely winning for white to a dead draw. Let's see, we have one more game still ongoing before we go over to the break. And this is an FM versus an IM, 26 versus a 2400. We have opposite colored bishops, and you know what they say about those. That very, very rarely ends in a decisive result. It's usually a draw. And the reason for that is that your bishop, so the light squared bishop, for example, if you're playing white, can only attack and defend light squares. your opponent's bishop can only attack and defend dark squares. And now basically you're stuck. You just shuffle the bishops back and forth and there's no way to make any progress. Although here it looks as though black has made a mistake, so we might get the one exception where the opposite colored bishop's endgame is not a draw. The deciding thing over here is that we have a passed pawn. So our bishop can just defend this. Ideally, I suppose you'd want the bishop over there, and white has managed to do that. And now you just run this pawn, win the bishop, and then you'll pick up one of these pawns. Not a lot of time, but it's black who has less time, and black just flags. Not quite unlucky there, but it's the way the chess goes, unfortunately. So after 4 rounds, let's have a quick look at the standings. Are those correct at the moment? In first place, we have Den Luz, 4 out of 4. We have Baba Guldi in second. Kesen Roman, Big Fish, Chess Warrior in equal fourth. So they're obviously tiebreakers starting to kick in. But a lot of people, everyone is number 4, is all on 4 points. And if you scroll down for quite a bit, the top 20 people or top 19 people are still on 4 out of 4, so on full score. All right, so we are going to take a break over here. I will be back soon. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are about to head into round 5 of our Title Tuesday event. We have a lot of people left on full score still, and the games have just begun. Before we jump into that, though, a lot of you might have noticed yesterday evening there was the Chess Done Quick event that happened, and we didn't yet announce who the winners were. So who the top 3 in the open section and in the under 2000 section, who the highest rated players were at the end of the 3 hours. So this is the announcement. It has now been updated. In the open sections, that was all of the players with a peak rating of over 2000 in Blitz. Our winner was Speedrun Ray, who I'm presuming is Ray Robson, the puzzle genius himself. In second place, getting a prize of $750 was EMCJSS. That I'm not entirely sure who that is. Perhaps chat knows who that was. And then in third place, we had GM Benjamin Bach, who also had some really, really strong attempts last night. I think all of them finished with puzzle ratings well into the 3000s after only 4 hours of doing puzzles. And then in the under 2000 section, so here I'm quite happy to be able to announce this. In first place with the highest rating at the end of the event, it was #Chess. Sadly, I can't lay any claim to that. It was the other member of #Chess, the African champion, Jessie February. So she got the 1000 first prize. In second, it was EduFun Chess YouTube, getting $500. And the third highest, it's another South African stream, it's the Chess Heroes, getting $250. So very well deserved over there. Congratulations to all of the winners in the event, and I think they're going to be monthly events. It was a lot of fun for the streamers to participate in, and I hope the viewers had a lot of fun over there as well. But in the meantime, we can go back to the games. The fourth round has begun, and we have Big Fish taking on GM Arseny Nestorov. And it looks as though White has started off with a slight advantage out of the opening. We are still in the early stages of the game. I don't think any of the games will have finished yet. The first minute or two of the round. White has their pieces are quite active over here. We have the knight on f5, which is very useful for an attack on the king. So it's hitting that e7 square. It's also potentially, it can be sacked on h6 or on g7. So knight on f5, very, very nice to have. And here we see a sacrifice. So the bishop takes on h6. Was it better to... Here it appears that it was better to just play patiently, go back. But sometimes we don't always need to play the most accurate chess in order to win our games. Often it is enough just to have the psychological advantage and to have the momentum of an attack over here. So despite giving up the bishop for just a pawn, we are still seeing that it is equal here, and presumably after that sack you have to take on h6, I would presume. It is what the engine prefers, although it gives black a slight advantage. You don't really, once you've already given up pieces, you don't want to start exchanging your attackers for defenders with something like this. Alright, and we see that I'm a move or two behind over here. They didn't take on h6, so perhaps obviously the plan over here is to take, but the problem now is the bishop can take the knight on f5. White presumably is going to lift their rook, bring it across, and hopefully do some damage. But the problem here is if you go rook to e3, just blindly following your original plan, surely there is a problem over here. Okay, I'm looking at bishop g5. I see the solution is rook to g3. The bishop now can't take the queen because it is pinned. But now I think white is maybe running out of pieces for the attack. We'll see. We'll check in on this game later and see how it is going. I'm going to try and find Hikaru's game. Let's go check in over there. And we've now found a Hikaru game where he has an advantage when we're checking in on the game. All of the rest of them, he's managed to win them, but every time we've checked, he's had a slight disadvantage. He looks as though he has a lot more active pieces. This poor bishop over here is just, it doesn't have a great future sitting on that b7 square. And we've got quite an attack happening from white. Hikaru playing very attacking chess. And even though the material is completely equal in this position, Hikaru has an advantage just because his pieces are so much more active. Okay, so the queen is going, and we're doing a central thrust when we're trying to attack the enemy's king, it is often a good idea to open up things in the center. So e4 over here, with the idea that if they take, I presume you would take back with the rook. You're then challenging this queen, forcing it to decide where it's going to go, and then maybe threatening to take the rook, draw the king back into the open. And also, if they take, another advantage is you're opening up this file for the queen. So black's obviously sitting here and considering options and has decided to go rook to d8, which appears to be a huge mistake, which is rough. So rook to d8, and how does white continue over here? The engine is suggesting e5, obviously with the idea that if takes back over here, we're now opening up a file to the king, getting this rook into attack. We then have a passed pawn over here that is currently heavily blockaded, but maybe it comes back into things in future. And Hikaru played exactly that. e5, d4, black obviously not wanting to open up the file. But I'm afraid this pawn might become quite weak in future. So we have a lot of faith Hikaru is going to get the win over here, which means I think we can go and check in on another game and see how it's going for some other players. We can check in on this game over here. So this is a board 2, Snowlord versus Chess Warrior. We have a 2800 FM who's currently on full score. Let's see if he can continue that streak. It's another endgame. With 2 seconds on the clock, that is not a lot of time. And black is also defending with not much time at all. I think this might just be another game that ends in a flag or perhaps a resignation entirely. It is quite discouraging when you have so little time and the 1 second increment is just not enough. And there we go, white won on time, but I think there was a mate and 6 on the board with a rook move, or knight to f5 is the only way to defend. It's looking very uncomfortable. Black's king is being attacked, but the time difference was also just too much over there. Let's go have a look at the defending champions game. So it's Jeffrey, and he looks to be in quite a lot of trouble. And this is great. We have I'm butchering the pronunciation of the game. I do apologize. Goryachkina. She challenged for the Women's World Championship title, and she gets a win against the reigning Title Tuesday champion. So that is a very big win over there. Jeffrey will need to make a comeback in the last couple of rounds, but I imagine he won't be too happy at all with this loss. It is a tough pill to swallow, but great to see the ladies over here representing. That is very nice to see. And I think there are some prizes for the top ladies as well in this event. Going back to this game, which looks, it said I think that there was a mate in 1. There is a mate in 1 and it keeps on being missed. So queen to e5 over here. The king is starting to escape. I guess it's hard to see when you don't have that much time, but just queen to e5 and the game is over. GG, checkmate. But not the easiest thing to see. You do have a couple of these squares being blocked off by pawns. They're still blitzing out the moves, but I mean, oh my goodness, we have 3 queens on the board. I would say that's too many queens, because that's when you start to have to really worry. I can't even catch up to where they are in the game. There we go, we've caught up. When you have too many queens, that does sometimes lead in stalemate, but here we just get a special version of the... Alrighty, things are happening here. Things are happening here indeed. As black, one might want to resign over there, but white is playing with the food, I guess we can say, going eventually for the checkmate. Tricky to say what's happening over there. Anyway, let's go have a look at another game. Here we have a grandmaster from Brazil taking on a grandmaster from France. Just based on the profile pics and usernames, I'm not entirely sure who these players are, and it looks as though we've actually missed that game. So let's go on to an active game that is happening. Attila Toza, remember we saw some of his games earlier. He is the player who is going for grandmaster, and unfortunately not getting the win over here. 2 games left. We have Chess.com and we have Kyrgyz Fighter, and white has just got a queen. Now the question is, can white checkmate? Okay, very nicely going after the pawns, not messing around at all, just getting the checkmate. Very nicely done. And I think we have one game still ongoing then. This is the last game for round 5, and it is NM Crazy Martian from India versus Niranjan Navalgund from India as well. I think we saw one of his games earlier, if I'm remembering the name correctly, and it looks drawn. The other saying is all rook endgames are drawn, and it's because it's so tricky. So tricky. If you move your rook away, they're just going to get the pawn, and then you're just playing on forever with one rook each, which gets quite frustrating. But it looks as though they're going to play on for a bit, going for the flag. There is always the possibility that your opponent blunders in this position. And it looks like black is just playing on. Something that also happens, I don't know if you guys also have this experience, but when you're playing a blitz or a bullet game, sometimes you don't want to take the time to offer a draw just in case you end up flagging. So that might have been the case over here where neither player was offering a draw, just carrying on to see how it's going. Possible to see the scores in the standings. They don't fit on the screen at the moment, but I can keep you updated on what the scores are. We are now down to the top 8 players. So there are 8 players left on 5 out of 5 after the first 5 rounds, which means we will get a clear winner fairly soon, and then it will be up to the rest of the field to see if they can dethrone that person. So we have Alexander Doshenko, one of our full score players at the moment, playing against Chess Warrior. I think, yes, all of the players that you can see on screen at the moment, those are players who have full score, if I'm not mistaken. So everyone on the screen has full score for now. We can expect that now to be halved because these people are all playing against each other. Alexander Doshenko, so that's a familiar name. I'm not sure if has he won Title Tuesday quite recently. I lose track of who wins every single week. But a very strong player nevertheless, and he is getting a very nice position over here, getting his bishop defending the knight and the pawn. Plus, if this pawn ever moves out the way, you have a nice diagonal towards black's king. And yeah, the knight is very nice and centrally located. We can potentially in future go for some sneaky tricks, though I'm not sure that would work against a grandmaster, but you gotta sometimes try your luck. Although, of course, at the moment, I am noticing this. The knight is attacking that square, so we cannot do that. All right, knight coming over here. Are we going to exchange for the bishop? I'm not entirely sure, because this bishop doesn't look that great. But then there is also the saying a knight is often worse than a bishop. So if you can, you do exchange. Grandmaster moves, there we go. Going after the sneaky attack. And potentially, there's now the option of going something like f4, f5, because if you can push this pawn, you then have this mating threat on g7. So we'll see how it goes. Hi everyone who is joining, great to have you joining this Title Tuesday. Once again, let me know if you do have anyone whose games you would like to see, and we can try go and find those games for you. Over here we do have GMZ Kid from the US playing against Hikaru. Hikaru has a slight disadvantage at the moment, so maybe we stay on this game for a while just to try and see how he manages to turn it around and get his win. And already the evaluation has gone back to equal. So Queen E2 apparently not the optimal move in this position. Hikaru is getting quite a lot of pressure on C4, and the problem is it's not that comfortable to go B3 over here. So Queen dropping back. I'm wondering if he's planning something like, okay, he can't do that because we do have to realize that the knight is being attacked. So Hikaru goes back possibly to defend the knight and do this. I'll be very impressed if this is actually his plan. I'm not sure what else. Okay, it'll probably change now. There's now the open file, and he's going to trade off bishops, playing on all sides of the board. Everything seems to be happening on this side, and then he just puts a bishop on g5, changing the attention away. So white has to really think, and that's going to cause some blunders when we get down on time. You are able to see the standings if you head to live chess or to chess play and go and watch the current tournaments that are happening. You should be able to find the title Tuesday tournament, and then you'll be able to look at all of the standings. There we go. Or you can follow the link in the chat. Okay, so Hikaru is now moving the knight around here. Where is that knight going to be heading? It's an absolute mystery for what's happening. This seems to be quite a blunder. Apparently we can take on d5. Should we pause over here and try and figure out if we can understand? Why are you able to... Okay, I have spotted it, so this is why we need to do our puzzles regularly. If you take over here, you obviously have to look at the most simple move. Chess is sometimes simple. Take back, what is the problem over here? And the idea is that if you, let's just go back a move. If you take back over here, along with this tactic, you're going to be looking at queen to b6 because this bishop is undefended, and you're then attacking the king. So that was the idea over there. It wasn't just going crazy and giving up a knight for a pawn. It was a valid continuation. That is what was happening. And it seems as though the knight wasn't taken, so Hikaru just won an entire pawn. And that is now a glimpse into how he does it, how he manages to go from having a slight disadvantage to winning the game overall. I think we're going to have a look at another game over here. So once again, Alexander Fear versus Fair Chess. It looks as though GM Fear has a huge advantage over here. Losing it as I say that though, the commentator's curse. It's always an issue. Let's see what was a little bit better over here. Another crazy move. This is why it's so important to see your tactics. Knight to f5 is the suggestion by the engine. Try and see if you're able to figure this out. What the solution is over here. Because I mean, what do you do if they just take... Oh, it's not that difficult actually. Now that I look at it. But maybe you guys also have a blind spot like me. If we take over here, you can then do a quick check of all of the pieces that are attacked and are defended, and you will soon see that this knight is not defended. So we can just take over there, we get our piece back, and we now have 2 pieces on the H file. So let's hop back to the actual game and see what's happening over here. GM Fear does still have an advantage over here. These pawns in the endgame are going to be really, really strong, even though he's not up material. Oh, he's up an exchange for a pawn. There we go. Black is still fighting back though. Still trying to go, and we do need to be careful now. Okay, that is a good safe move. I was about to say we need to be careful that the black doesn't have time to do something like this and get a checkmate on b2. So knight over here, it's attacking the queen. It makes sense. Just simple chess. Deal with your opponent's threats. Let us go and find another game that is going on at the moment. What about... Okay, it looks like... There we go, we found Hess's game. So Hess is playing against Big Fish. This is a big matchup. These players are both on 4 out of 5. So they're near the top. They need to win every game if they do want to try and place overall in the standings. Oh, unfortunately, it is not going well for Rob. Oh, that is a mate in 1. Was there any way to stop that? Or was it just a resignation to the fate? Unfortunately, here, the only way to stop it is to go here, which is giving up a bishop. And then you're just down so much material. I'm not sure how we got to that position, but I don't think we'll make Robert relive his pain by going over all of this again. Let's go and check on Greg Shahadi's game versus Becca95. Does anyone know who Becca95 was? Yes, in the previous game. So Hess was down a rook and a knight and was about to lose a bishop as well. So there you just accept your fate and move on with your life. Oh, there we go. Jesse's in the chat as well. Hi, Jesse. Okay, so we have over here dead equal. These endgames are so tricky to play. White is picking up a pawn. You have to be careful not to blunder anything, and the players are dangerously low on time, which makes blunders very, very possible. And there is also a bishop on the board, and the king's on the same color as the bishop, so we want to watch out for any forks. And you can see that the grandmaster is just putting his pieces on light squares so that they can't be attacked by the bishop. And we should get a draw over here, assuming Greg doesn't make any blunders in time trouble. And that's then a very good draw for Greg if he does manage to get that, taking out a 2900. Well, not taking out, but drawing with the 2900. The bar is doing a little bit of movement, which is maybe a little bit worrying. We have a fork. Oh no! And white won on time. I really need to just stop. I need to stop mentioning people's names because then they end up losing their games, and I'm not okay with being a jinx. We have over here Fusik versus Grishuk. Not Grishuk because this is Grishuk from Spain and an FM, not a grandmaster. But we have once again a fairly equal game. You might think that black is winning because they have the extra knight, but white does have the pawn, and it's only a knight. Sadly, you can't checkmate with the knight. I imagine black will still carry on playing though, and white will carry on playing because they're trying to get the flag. Another game where I think they'll just shuffle the pieces back and forth until either someone makes a huge blunder or they get a repetition. It's hard for either side to make progress, although this is now starting to look a little bit scary for black because you're being chased towards the side of the board, which is not where you want to go when you don't have that many pieces. Because the side of the board is where checkmate happens, and that is where white is going to be checkmated if black does manage to win this game. Let's check in on the other game that is happening, and this is looking a little bit scary. This is looking very, very scary for white. There we go. That unfortunately is just a straight up checkmate. And I think that's all the games. The games are over. Next round is starting soon, so round 7 out of 11, and we are down to how many players on full score. The top 4 players still have full score, so that's Chess Warrior, Alexander Moskalenko, Grigorov, and Manticore. And Hikaru drew his game. Alright, it looked as though he was really easily winning that game when we checked in earlier, but somehow his opponent managed to hold the draw. I imagine he won't be too happy with this Hikaru. 5.5 out of 6, but still top 5 at the moment, so there's definitely chance to win the entire event. But it does give a little bit of breathing room to the top 4 at the moment. And the 7th round has begun. Let us start looking at board 1. So 2 of our players on full score, Alexander Moskalenko. I'm guessing that is Alexander Moskalenko. And Chess Warrior. Who is Chess Warrior? Does anyone know in chat what is the username or what is the real name of GM Chess Warrior? How many does Fedosiv have? I think he's on 5.5 as well. Fedosiv, he's on 5, so he's dropped 1 point. I think he must have lost the previous round because he was, I think, on full score before that. Oh, he drew a game earlier. All right, so then he's drawn 2 games. That's what's happening here, and this is our other game with the players. Oh dear, sorry, I keep on pressing on names instead of on games, unfortunately. But this is our second game that is going on, where we have Manticore versus Grigorov, our other players on full score, and they have started off with just a dead drawn position. White does have doubled pawns, and one of them is being attacked, and he decides not to defend it. I suppose the rationale is that black hasn't really got great development. Black hasn't castled yet. Black hasn't got the bishop out, so you don't really want to go running about picking up pawns when you haven't got your king to safety. Oh, Hikaru drew 2 rounds ago. All right, thank you. We missed that game. So he won the previous one. It would have been strange if he'd lost the previous game, because when we left, he had a huge advantage, and we trust that he would be able to convert that. Over here, black is now starting to get a little bit of an advantage, despite being so behind in development. White's pieces, I suppose, are not really the best placed. The bishop is still on c1. This one's not looking too bad, but now we're going to have to move our queen again. Queen a4 looks like a little bit of a strange move, but I'm sure there was a reason for that. Anyway, we can move on to I think this is our 3rd board. So this is the top board of those people who have 5.5 points out of 6. So only dropped half a point so far. We have GM Enarvisak from India and Hikaru, who everyone here should know who Hikaru is. I imagine he's streaming the event at the moment as well. And we've got a knight to c4. That's a very nice outpost for the knight. There's no way to push a pawn and to chase the knight away. So the knight is just stuck there unless you can challenge it with another piece, like with your knight. Who is Hikaru? He is one of the strongest grandmasters and probably one of the quickest grandmasters, if not the quickest grandmaster on the internet. We've got a knight to e2. There we go, and this game is also nothing too crazy. As you can see with a lot of these top games, the top boards, they're just playing solid, simple chess, and then winning the game in the end game when it comes down to that. No crazy attacks happening so far. We can maybe find a crazy game as we go through. This is a game that has a little bit more excitement going on, perhaps. So we have Diocletian versus Big Fish. And white is starting to have a little bit of an attack. We're noticing some very attacking play from Big Fish. We have the queen on the king side, we have the bishop, and we have the rook, which is quite a few pieces. Perhaps not enough for an entire attack because we've traded off all of the other minor pieces. But obviously there are still some plans for an attack because Big Fish has hung on to the queen, declined the queen trade that was offered over here. It probably was a sarcastic question. Yes, you are correct. I think we can go on and look at some other games that are going on. Let's look at GM Donchenko's game versus GM Jospin. 5 points each, so they've only dropped 1 point this entire tournament. And we have a rook on a6, which is a little bit of a weird looking place for the rook. I'm wondering what... Okay, the plan is if queen to b7, then we have queen takes b5. So then you're defending the rook and you're picking up a pawn over here. It looked like... I almost want to say we had opposite side castling, but then this king is just in the middle of the board. So I think over here white just decided not to castle at all. It was a Roy Lopez opening and white just decided king is safe in the middle. This looks a little bit scary, but fortunately this file is very much closed. There are so many pieces on this file. There's no way to get at white's king at the moment. And it looks like white is just up 3 pawns. I was wondering why the evaluation is so far in white's favor, but there's just a lot of pawns with no compensation for black. We also do have a very nicely placed knight, which is attacking this pawn on f7. The g7 square is... I mean, both of these squares in front of the king are controlled. So if you're able to get a queen or a rook back there, things are just not looking good for black at all. There might even be some sacrifices that are possible in this position. Did you want to see Hikaru's game? We can try go back to that if it is still going on. Let me try find it. Okay, I'm not able to bring that game back. I think is it still ongoing, or it might have ended already. In the meantime, let's go and look. I don't think we've seen any of these players' games yet this tournament. It's Snowlord versus Sergei Zigalko. And we don't see much of that game at all. It finishes as we arrive, white getting a very easy win. There's just too much pressure over here. I think we're up in exchange. We have an attack on the king. So black just resigned. Oh, black ran out of time. The fastest way to end the game. Here we can head over. We have GM MSB2 versus Becker. We've seen quite a few of Becker's game. Of course, I'm biased because Rebecca, and we're down to 27 seconds to 15, which is not too much time. This is where the blunders do start to sneak in. Both of these players on 5 points so far, but it is looking dead equal. We've got a check, just getting the king to safety. King is maybe looking a little bit... Yeah, it wasn't very happy over there, so we're seeing white running all the way across, getting the king some exercise and getting the king to safety. And black's king is not looking too happy itself. There's space on this side, there's space on this side, and now we just start to pick up pawns on the queen side. A very much dancing evaluation bar. I think this pawn might decide the game. We do need to just not ignore our king side though. We do have to look after the rook. And we're getting the queen out the way so that we can just push this pawn, promote. Don't think there's any way to stop it. Just going for the sneaky attacks on the rook. That's the only chance to try survive this game. And wait. We're back to equality. What happened there? Okay, so over here the problem is this knight is now defending on a8. So we have to do something and try stop this pawn from promoting. a7, now the pawns are running and it's completely equal. Let's see what's happening in the actual game. Bishop takes a8, king is going across, the kings are now running, it's absolutely equal. This king is stuck, it can't go here. Okay, now do we... Oh, if we take that pawn though, this pawn drops. This one's looking a bit loose. We have this pawn to run. They have this pawn to run. It's another race. Who's going to come out on top over here? That is the question. So easy to make a mistake. You don't have any time to calculate. The one thing that is good over here is you do still have a minor piece. So if you manage to get one of the pawns, you just sack your minor piece for the other pawn, and then you are safe. It should hopefully be okay. Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome if you are just joining us. This is, I think, the 7th round. Yes, the 7th round, I'm not losing track yet, of our Title Tuesday event. After this, there are 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 4 rounds left. So we're approaching the final third of the tournament. And this game is just a draw, but an exciting draw nevertheless. We have GM3 busy playing over here. We get to see one of his games. How is this going? It's another rook endgame that is just completely drawn. It should be drawn, yes. It's always tricky here, so the... Oh no. Wait, what happened over there? My knowledge of endgames is not good enough to know. But white seems to be doing things wrong, and isn't there a queen? Oh dear. That was very, very unfortunate for GM3, unfortunately not getting the win. I think we can probably pause on that game because there's one game left. Just how are we supposed to win this? It was completely equal, and then bad things happened. Rook to a1, so the key thing is not letting the king go back here. And now I presume this is a theoretical win, or rather there's no way to stop the promotion of the pawn. This is why white resigned. You can take the pawn over here, but then you're just a rook down and you will get checkmated fairly soon. You can go check and try and protect the promotion square, but they just promote anyway, and after you exchange, they're up a rook. So that was very, very unfortunate, but so hard to get these endgames right when you are under so much time pressure. I think we can take... You just have to YOLO out, exactly. I think we can take a quick look at the standings before we start looking at the games, but round 8 has begun. I think there is going to be a break after this round, just so that the players can rest a little bit before the final 3 rounds. And we are down to 2 players on full score. It is Alexander Moskalenko and Manticore, the 2 players with 7 out of 7. Hikaru close behind with 6.5, and those are the only 3 players who haven't lost more than a point. So lots of competition. Hikaru can still make a comeback. There are 3 games left. So if he wins the rest of his games, that should be enough to get the title. Let us go and check in. We can start off by looking at his game. We've got him playing against Big Fish and looks fairly equal so far. Nothing too complicated happening on the board. White is maybe going to reroute this bishop, go for some sort of a attack over here. We're going to see how these 2 grandmasters play. There's a lot at stake over here. So Hikaru has to get the win. If he doesn't get the win, he's probably out of the running for the top 3. But similarly, Big Fish is only half a point behind. So a win over here is really, really important to try and still get one of the podium finishes. And we've got a queen to e2 on the board, just getting out of the way of this attack along the d file. I'm guessing we might get something like rook d1. It looks like quite a natural move, just developing the rook and also adding an extra defender to the d3 square. Because if we do the whole trick of counting the attackers and the defenders, black currently has 1, 2, and 3 pieces attacking d3, whereas white only has 2. And in order for your piece to be safe, you have to have the same number of defenders as you have attackers on it. So white needs to add 1 more defender, and there we go, rook d1 is on the board. Took 32 seconds though, which is... That's 1/6 of your time in this tournament, which is not a lot. That's a little bit of a risky play for a move that looks quite obvious, but we can trust that there was obviously some sort of analysis behind it. I'm not sure what else. I suppose the thought is, how do you untangle these pieces? Your knight can't develop to here, can't develop to here, and if you develop here, then why did you even move the rook to d1 in the first place? Because you're not defending the d3 square. This is really, really tricky. I'm not sure how you play this. Maybe there'll be something like an a4, but a4 and then you lose that pawn perhaps. Looking difficult. Okay, bishop to e3. That's a really important principle. When you are down in terms of space, so when you don't have that much space, you do want to exchange pieces, and Hikaru going for knight to d4, which looks absolutely crazy. If most of us, if this happened in our chess games, we would just be really excited and be like, cool, they blundered a piece, just take it immediately. Here there is a hidden trick though, so now the bishop can't move out the way to safety because the queen is being attacked. Unfortunately for white. Hikaru basically just starting to increase the pressure over here, and we'll see how much pressure is too much. The rook is now being attacked as well. Bishop, can you take over here? Because you get a queen, you give up a queen, but it looks tricky. So now we're moving the knight in order to defend on a1. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully Hikaru manages to get the win over here for his sake. But I mean, they're fairly close in terms of rating, 200 points. And somehow we've managed to untangle and get this bishop out of the pin, but we still have another piece. It's a real pity that they aren't playing something like Crazy House here and can just plop a pawn down on one of these squares just to get that pressure off of the e-file. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to move on and look at another game, see how it's going for some of the other players, and we'll see what the result is of this afterwards, because they are at the top of the top of the standings. Here we have GM Grigorov versus Chess Warrior, and it's not looking too good for white over here. Black is not even up material as far as I can count. There are two rooks, two minor pieces, but white's king is not looking very safe at the moment. And another thing that we have for black is we do have a very far advanced pawn. So the engine is just suggesting over here, it wasn't seen, just an h3, starting to push this pawn. White is starting to make a little bit of a comeback. We've got a queen over here. I imagine black will probably be swinging a rook across at some stage. And the really annoying thing here is that we have our rook cutting off the king, so the king can't come closer and help attack or defend against this pawn. The queens have been traded, which I would imagine might help black, because and black's just getting even more pressure, getting those rooks along the file, and now I think you can probably start pushing the pawn at some stage. We will see if that happens. White is also in a lot of time trouble, but trying to hang on with the defense. The pawn is now running, although apparently it's not the plan now. The engine doesn't really like that too much, but it could also just be trying to figure out what's going on in this fast-paced game. Who else is still playing at the moment? Remember, after this round there is going to be a short break. Oh my goodness, and we just get a resignation over here. What happened? That was too fast to even realize. We had a rook to e4. Once again, guys, this is why Puzzle Rush is so important. There are lots of tactics like this. What we can see over here is the king is overloaded, so it is defending the rook and it is defending the bishop. The problem with this is that if you just take the bishop, as black did over here, if we recapture the bishop, then they just get the rook, because now the king's no longer defending it. Our king was just overworked, doing far too much, and that is where it all fell apart. So very nicely spotted, some quick tactics over there. We can go and try find one of the games that are still going on. Here we have... So this, remember, I think this is the only game with players on full score. Yes, these are two players still on 7 out of 7. So if someone were to win this game, they are then the sole leader of the tournament, but it looks as though this might end in a draw, which bodes very well for Hikaru if he manages to get the win. Okay, the knight is moving. Hikaru did get the win, so Hikaru's on 7.5 out of 8. If they draw this game, which is looking very likely because white can just give up the knight for the pawn, a draw in this game means that we have, I think, a 3-way tie for first place after 8 rounds. This is one of the last games going on. Actually, I'm lying to you. There are a lot of games still going on. Let's go and have a look at... Here we have Alexandra Goryachkina again versus GM Timofey AR, 2800. Alexandra's on 5 points, so she's doing very, very well in the tournament so far. 5 points out of 7, and we'll see if she manages to pick up another point over here. Very low on time though, 8 seconds to 17. But still playing really, really good moves under pressure, keeping that draw. Black is starting to run the pawn. I think, yeah, I was about to say, I think you can just go king f3. The pawn, if it's pushed, you take it with the king. And now okay, it's maybe a bit tricky. You still have to be careful here, because if you trade the rooks, then you're going to get a passed pawn for black on this side, and black might have been able to hold things. I'm not sure if the white king would be too far away. But as you can see here, the players are just trading everything. We're getting a draw in this game. Just take the pawn and take the rook, and there we go. There's a draw without having to take a second or two to offer a draw. I thought I saw Eric's name here, Eric Hansen, but it has disappeared. So he's playing in the tournament as well. I'm not sure how he's doing. Vinny the Pooh, I think Vinny the Pooh is a... Does he stream as well? Or I might be making it up. There we go, we're getting, sadly, a loss over there. And Super Chess versus Mishonik. Once again, a rook endgame that is completely drawn. Get your king to do all your fitness needs. Exactly, there we go. Completely drawn over here. How are the standings looking? So did we have a decisive... No, we didn't have a decisive result. 7.5. All right, I think we'll look at the last couple of games as they go on before we head into the break. Here we have Sam Chess Mood, and once again a draw. Lots and lots of draws. As we get further along in the tournament, people are playing people very similar to their rating strength, and that is why we're getting a lot more draws, whereas in the first couple of rounds, things weren't necessarily easily matched. Are we discussing fitness now? The best fitness videos. There's some great chair fitness videos for seniors. So you guys can go and check those out. Just Google home workouts for seniors. And then you can exercise while playing chess. What could be better? All right, and we have one. That was the last game. Chess Dragon versus Yurovsky. And it is over, which means that I think we are heading into our break, unless I'm lying to you all. We have a break after round 9. We'll... Oh, is it now? I'm just confused. Wait, let me check. It is break time. It says next round starting soon. Okay, so we're gonna head into a break, but before we do that, let us have a quick check of the standings. So we've got Hikaru in the lead on tiebreaks, Alexander Moskalenko in second place on tiebreaks, and Manticore in third place on tiebreaks. Not a single person on full score out after 8 rounds. So we'll see how much further behind full score people fall as we go through the last 3 rounds. But for now, enjoy the break. I will be back very soon. right, welcome back, everyone. We are heading into round 9 out of the Title Tuesday champs this week, and it's been a very exciting tournament so far. We don't have a single player on full score out of oh my word, I'm losing my English already. We always joke on our stream that I just can't English, but sadly English is my first language. I just get confused sometimes. So we are heading into round 9, and only 3 players are still on or are in the lead. Not a single player on full score so far. So 7.5 out of 8, that is the current top score, and we have 3 players on that at the moment. If we just zoom in a little bit on the standings, these are our top players at the moment. So on 7.5 out of 8, we have Hikaru, we have Alexander Moskalenko, and we have Manticore. And in 4th place on 7 out of 8, we have quite a few players who are tied for 4th. Everyone in the top 9 has 7 out of 8 points. So that is Kezan Roman, Chess Warrior, Dan Laz, Arseny Nestorov, Jim Saichev Clementi, and also Murad Ibrahimli, who's not on the screen over there, but he is also on 7 out of 8 points at the moment. It looks as though we have begun with the next round. In the meantime, I will just quickly remind you what is up for grabs today. The players are playing for quite a substantial prize fund, so $750 for first place. The best streamer also gets a prize. There's a prize for the best female. I think Gorakshina is probably in the lead over there. So lots at stake as we head into these final rounds. I think it is quite fitting to just, I keep on clicking on that. I've realized the problem is I'm clicking on the title. I do apologize for that once again. There we go, we're back to the games. We have Hikaru versus Manticore, 2 of the players on 7.5 out of 8. And they've exchanged a lot of pieces already. 2 minor pieces have been traded, not so many pawns being exchanged, only 1 pawn each. And an interesting position. I'm wondering how we've lost the B pawn and we've lost the E pawn. I'm not entirely sure how we got to that position. I see we were also chatting before the break whether we could beat grandmasters in rock, paper, and scissors. I didn't actually realize until recently that there's a World Rock, Paper, Scissors Championship. So if you can't beat people in chess, perhaps you can start training for the Rock, Paper, Scissors Championship and try your luck there at beating our grandmasters. But in the meantime, we will just admire their chess. We have Hikaru getting quite a big advantage over here, a 1-point advantage, which in grandmaster chess is a large advantage. For a lot of us, when we play our chess, it can swing wildly, and 1 point is not necessarily enough to win the game. Here, I imagine that Hikaru is just going to gradually increase his advantage, and then he will continue to be the leader after the 9th round, with not too many more rounds left to go. Never lost in tic-tac-toe? I mean, we can all claim that. We've never lost in rock, paper, scissors, or in tic-tac-toe against Hikaru. We can say that we are unbeaten at the moment. I think let's head over to the second boards game, which is Alexander Moskalenko playing against Jim Saichev, who's on 7 points versus 7.5. Very important game for Moskalenko over here. He needs to get a win in order to stay tied first. Tie breaks do determine things overall, but I mean, you still want to win all of your games, even if your tie breaks aren't great. You want to end up in the prize money. Or in the money, as we call it. Quite an advantage here for white. Black is trying to go for some sort of break over here, going to bother the knight and maybe try pick up... Okay, not try pick up this pawn. Will he take it? Not like that, because that's not how queen moves. Will he take this pawn on d5? Is that safe? It looks really tempting. Although then, potentially, yes, bishop b4 is problematic. What did the engine like over there? Weirdly enough, the engine liked queen takes d5. Then after bishop b4, you can just move the queen back. But that was not found, and we just continue over here. White is just making active moves, trying to gradually improve the position of the pieces. Queen to c2. Why is this such a blunder? It now looks as though f4 is going to be what we're going to carry on with. Potentially. Let's see if he manages to find this move. It's quite a strange looking move because this pawn is then backwards, your king is starting to get opened up, and he finds it. This is why Moskalenko is a grandmaster, a 2845 rated player. This is now attacking the knight. I imagine in future there might be an f5. We'll see how it goes. There we go. The queen is going indeed. Shall we check in on another game? It looks as though white should convert this quite easily. Chess Warrior, so this is our third board. versus Murad Ibrahimli. So these are both players on 7 points. Wins here, once again, important because you want to win the rest of your games and try and get one of those top positions, top 4 positions. It looks as though in this position, black has the advantage of the A file, but not much that can be done over there. Unfortunately, the bishop was on a different color to b3. So that is why it's evaluated as completely equal. Sometimes a bishop is better than a knight in endgames if they're pawns on both sides of the board, but I think here the position is so close that the knight makes up for it in that it can defend and attack just as well as the bishop can do. So I think we'll go and let's check in on Becker's games. We haven't looked at GM Becker's games in a bit. 6.5 points are still doing really, really well. And we have Arseny Nestorov, also on 7 points over there. So important game here, more important for Arseny than it is for Becker, but completely drawn. So we might just get a boring draw over here. Or maybe it's an exciting draw. We didn't see the rest of the game, but this is just a fairly standard looking endgame. And everything is, I mean, there's an equal number of pawns on this side of the board. Here they might trade. Yeah, trades are happening. I might prefer to play black here a little bit. It looks maybe a little bit easier to defend, just based on my own endgame skills that I know. But we'll see how they end up doing. We can maybe, shall we go back to Hikaru's game and see has that game ended already? I don't think it's ended already. Let's try and see if we can bring that game up. All right, it might not have updated yet on the standings, so we can go and look at a different game. Here we have Giga Kuparadze from Georgia taking on Genghis K from Argentina, and once again another endgame. We're getting to the stage of the round where most of the games are in the endgame stage, and the players are starting to get into some time pressure. So 5 seconds on the clock for Genghis, which is not a lot of time at all, and it is tricky with the queen still on the board. Very, very easy to blunder, and there's still some bishops which can lead to pins, and that is just rather unpleasant. Trading the queens, which makes it a little bit easier, not a bad idea to do. And black is just marching the king forward. White's going to start to activate the king. Remember, it is very important when you are busy playing an endgame to get your king into the action. Your king becomes much more important. He usually just sits on the side of the board while you're playing a game, but then in the endgame, bring it closer, use it as an attacking piece. It doesn't have to be protected anymore. And I see Hikaru's game is over. So Hikaru won his game 8.5 out of 9. And in second place, the name is too long. I can't see. Oh wait, if Alexander Moskalenko won that game, I presume. So we have 2 players on 8.5 out of 9 and a couple of players on 7.5 out of 9. I'm not seeing anyone on 8. So we're having a lot of draws in this round. We can go check in on some of the lower boards. So here we have Rend versus Super Chess. And White completely winning over here despite being down in exchange, but there are just more than enough pawns to compensate for the exchange. So White is going to just be running the pawns, getting a queen or 2, and probably winning a rook in the process. Hikaru on autopilot. Is he just in the zone? Is this his tournament? It looks as though he is well on his way to winning though. He's been having some very good wins from what we have seen. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the end of any of the games, but we've seen the beginning and the middle, and they've seemed to be going very, very well. We can go check in. Okay, there we go. One of the rooks is off the board. I'm gonna try update and see which games are still going on. Here we have a game that is slightly more equal than the previous one. So it's just rook and bishop versus rook and bishop. I presume they're playing for a flag. We can try and find something a little bit more exciting. Here we have a 2100 versus a 2300, and we have what we discussed earlier, the opposite colored bishops, which just means it's a complete draw. Because as black, you have no way of chasing this king away. That's another way to end the game and get the draw. But you have no way to chase the king away, and white has nowhere to attack the pawn. So it's just a dead draw. I think we have 1 game left. We have 0 games left. We are moving on to round 9. No, round 10. That was round 9. So we're nearly done with the tournament, the second last round. 451 players left in the event. The rest have decided that the chess is too much. Hikaru in the lead with 8.5, but GM Alexander Moskalenko very close behind in second place, just on tie breaks. So it's also on 8.5 points. I think the name is too long for my screen. I can check on this one over here. Yes, both of them are on 8.5 points. In terms of the tie breaks, it's 40.25 versus 37. So it's really, really close. They both need to win their last round, their last 2 rounds. And then we will see who has the better tie breaks after that. And Chess Warrior on 8 points. Den Las also on 8 points. So we have 4 players with 8 out of 9 or better, but the rest of them have unfortunately encountered 2 strong opponents. Next round should be starting soon, and it has begun. Round 10 out of 11. Let me wait for the games to pop up, and we will probably spend quite a lot of time now on the top boards to see what's happening. Way too much time to flag in an opposite colored bishop endgame. Yes, that is very true. So in an opposite colored bishop endgame, like this one over here, it's so easy. Just pre-move bishop moves back and forth. Same thing for black, although black would be the only one with chances to perhaps win it, but no chance to flag. It's just too easy to make the defensive moves. All right, let us see the game. So Hikaru is now playing against Moskalenko. They've just begun the game. We missed the first couple of moves. What opening was this? Another Polish opening. Hikaru with the white pieces, which means he'll be heading into the last round probably with the black pieces. In order to join the tournament, so you have to be a titled player and to have your title verified on Chess.com. And then on a Tuesday, just head to the tournaments tab in live chess or in chess play, and you should be able to see the tournament pop up. So it's open to any titled players. It's a really great opportunity to get experience and to play against some tough competition. And for the top GMs, there's obviously a great chance to get prize money if you manage to have a good tournament and to beat out the rest of your competition. Unfortunately, being entitled is not enough. You do have to be titled. Here we have Hikaru going over here with the bishop. Once again, heading out of the opening with a bit of a disadvantage. Possibly earlier that was maybe what led to draw in one of his games. We missed the game that he did draw. But perhaps it was something like this. White's pieces seem to be fairly cramped, but that also places some pressure on black. And this is actually the first place. This game may decide the entire tournament because both of these players are on 8.5 and everyone else is at least half a point behind them. I think we can go on, while nothing too crazy is happening over here, we can probably go and look at another game. Can we try and find, let's look at Den. That game's over already? All right, it seems some of our games are over. There we go. We have I am Mündler. I'm probably mispronouncing that as well, but wonderful time. He's a very strong player, probably Grandmaster strength, but just doesn't have the title yet. He's a regular in a lot of the Title Tuesday events, does very, very well. His bullet chess is also crazy. Versus Giga Kuparadze from Georgia. And things seem to be quite equal so far. White is being challenged, so the question is, do you take over here or do you just retreat the knight? And where do you retreat the knight to? You don't oh, okay. Maybe you do want to do this. Let's just look at the alternatives. I suppose if knight goes back here, your knight is not in a very, very happy square. If you go back here, that allows c4. And the knight can't go to really any of these other squares because there are pieces there. So maybe this was the option. In general, you don't really want to give up two pieces for the rook. We're going to see if... Am I thinking about this correctly? So if they take over here, takes... Oh, I'm not even thinking about that correctly. For some reason, I thought there was another thing from black busy attacking the square. There is not. So the knight is safe over here. So it is okay. Black has dropped a pawn, but the thing is white's pieces are in such awkward places. And this one is subject to be attacked. So we'll see what happens. I see I've missed a lot of moves as well, so we can just jump up. And this is the current position on the board. And white has managed to turn it around. White is now the one with the advantage. And you are correct, there is an increment. So it's 3+1. That is the time control for today, which is quite a tricky time control to play. We get used to playing 3+2, and then the 1 second increment it's helpful, but it's just not enough sometimes. And that's why we have seen quite a few flags happening today. You would think that you shouldn't be able to flag with an increment, but the 1 second just runs out far faster than you would imagine. And it's very hard to gain time when you are playing on that increment. I think we can go and look at another game. Let's have a look at Manticore versus Tiger Vishlaya. That's an interesting username. And I'm probably pronouncing it very, very, very wrong. White has a massive advantage here. What we're noticing for a lot of these games with the engine analysis or the evaluation bar on the side is often if you look at the material. So if we look over here, for example, black is just down a pawn, but it gives white a massive advantage of 3.21, where each point is supposed to equal 1 pawn. So we're seeing in a lot of these games that it's positional things that are causing the difference in evaluation. It's not just pieces. And was black in just such a horrible position that they didn't know what to do over here? I suppose you can't move your knight. That is just a very sad knight move to make because your rook is now blocked. Can maybe go there, but okay. I suppose that happened. Let's move on and see what's happening. Is Hikaru's game still going on? Doesn't look like it. And this is the next game we can look at. GMZ Kid 2851 versus Vladislav Kovalov. Kovalov's done really, really well in quite a few of the titled Tuesdays. Oh dear. What they have to do with the 3+1. Yes, Title Tuesdays is always 3+1. If you have a problem with it, you can write a formal complaint to Danny Wrench, and I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will listen to your concerns. That is the time control. So the Women's Speed Chess Championship, there it's also a 1 second increment. The 5+1, 3+1. I suppose it's a good middle ground, because some people hate increment, they like to go for the dirty flags, and some people hate playing without increments because they don't like getting flagged. So it's a good middle ground. 3+1 or 5+1, it's strange to play, but once you get used to it, it does make flagging a little bit less likely. So that if you are massively up, like if you have an extra queen, you have enough time to checkmate. You don't have one of those really frustrating situations where you're completely winning and you run out of time. Okay, so knight to c5. The queen's now being asked a question. Where does the queen end up going? It's deciding to go for the oh, mate in 1. Oh dear. Spotted so quickly. Black is the one who had extra time, but this is the tricky thing with the increment. You feel like you need to move really quickly. That was such a natural... Here as black, you're like, this is great. I'm winning a piece because you're attacking the queen and you're attacking the knight. So easy to miss though that g7 is just being attacked and mate in 1. It is very, very rough. All right, let's see which games are still going on. And it looks like Hikaru won his game, so Hikaru's on 9.5 out of 5. That gives him the clear lead. And next up is Chess Warrior with 9 points out of 10. And then Alexander Moskalenko only on 8.5 points. So we're starting to have a separation at the top there as we head into the last round. Still a couple of games ongoing though before we head over there. A Scottish surname? Yes, definitely. But not a Scottish accent at all. We have Alex Rastomov playing against Super Chess, 2 GMs on 6 points each, just illustrating what a strong and what a difficult event it is to have 2 grandmasters who are on 6 out of 9, having lost 3 games or drawn a couple of those games. And we have a rook endgame that is drawn. I didn't see earlier if it was perhaps equal. Here, you as black, you just need to make sure that the pawn doesn't. I think it's that the king doesn't go in front of the pawn. It's one of those endgames you're supposed to know. I think if the king goes in front of the pawn, then you manage to be okay. But if you push the pawn, then you just manage to check at the back. We will see how these two players go on there. They're playing for quite a bit. Super Chess with 57 seconds on the clock, but it looks like they might just be. They're not repeating over here. I suppose you need to know your endgames really, really well to know that this is a drawn endgame. Also, I'd be a little bit scared that I was trading into an endgame where I was lost, but you can see here both of the players know the technique. Just keep on stepping back and in front of the pawn, getting the opposition against the king. So the opposition is this over here, where the two kings are facing each other with one square between them, or an odd number of squares between them, and it's not your turn. So over here, it's white to move. So then we say that black has the opposition because their king's facing the other king, and unfortunately, you can't make any progress. Your king can't move forward over there. So very nice technique over there from black. The grandmasters definitely know these endgames. And this, I see, was the last game for this round. We had I didn't see the result as it popped up. So that means we are done with round number 10 and we are heading into the final round. This is it for Hikaru. Hikaru just needs a draw probably to win the entire event, finishing on 10 out of 11, but I'm sure he's going to go for the flex win and try and get 10.5 out of 11. I don't think that it's very common to have someone win the title Tuesday with full score. So 10.5 out of 11 is a very, very respectable score. And then Chess Warrior with 9 points, and then third, fourth, fifth, and sixth all have 8.5 points over here. So Alexander Moskalenko, Giga Kuparadze, Manticore, and Zedkit all have 8.5 out of 10. Still a very, very good score, but sadly not enough to catch up to the leaders at this point. Still a race for the top 4 positions though, so we'll see what happens in these games. But I think for most of this, we will focus on Chess Warrior versus Hikaru. Does this decide anything? So if Hikaru loses this and Chess Warrior wins, okay, this is the championship game. This is the game for the title. If Chess Warrior wins this game, Chess Warrior will have 10 out of 11. If Hikaru loses, he'll then have 9.5 out of 11. So this is a very, very crucial game. Hikaru has to win or draw it in order to get the title. Sadly, no marbles today. No marbles after the tournament. This is mainly a chess channel, I think. So white is starting to double up, put some pressure on the e-file. Black now can't castle because then we just... Yeah, I don't think there are any tricks. Then we just lose the bishop. Now, this is looking nice for white so far. Let's see how Hikaru manages to wriggle his way out of it. I'm scared to leave this game just in case we miss the end of this game like I have for the rest of them. Knight is coming here, which is blocking this file now, but attacking the queen. It's very important to play active moves when you do have an advantage. Keep on making some threats and try and make sure that your opponent is having to respond to your moves. Hikaru already massively down on time, so we could have an upset over here, which would be quite a shock. I suppose, are there some threats? Engine suggests the best move over here. There's actually quite a big difference between the first and the second move. So queen to e6. This is the engine suggestion with the idea that you're busy just protecting the e-file. There are a couple of problems happening over here. If you go somewhere else, so let's say you go queen to g6, that's the second best move. You now might start to get into a little bit of trouble. You don't have much of an attack over here. This can be dealt with quite easily just by dropping a piece back or by defending, and white can now start, before you have a chance to castle on this side, start doing things like a5, with the idea that a5, if you castle, here you can't actually take the pawn back because you lose the rook. But anyway, let's go see what's happening in the actual game. And they've only just now made it. Whoa. Hikaru took, how much time was that? It hasn't updated yet for how much time it had, but perhaps it was because I was off of the tab, but that was a lot of time. Hikaru is now down to a minute. We're going to start to see the blitzing happening now. Hikaru really has to speed up. A minute versus 2.5 minutes. Chess Warrior has barely used any time and is now has a very commanding position. We've got, I mean, this rook is now ready to swing across to wherever you need it. You do have to defend it though, or move it. One of the two. The suggestion is just to swing it all the way across to the other side of the board, which is a really strange looking move. And the second best move is to... All of these are such strange looking... Whoa! Okay, so setting up a trap over here, if bishop takes, because it's like, but pre-bishop, then we actually have mate in 3. So see if you can spot the mate in 3 after this There's a check. The king can go across here. And then check, check, and mate. So that would be absolutely devastating. Hikaru has obviously not taken the rook. Hikaru can see these tactics. We have a rook sack. Rook takes g7. We are getting an absolutely crazy game for the title. There's now a 10.5 advantage. And is Chess Warrior going to win the entire event? What is happening here? Hikaru seemed to be cruising for the rest of the tournament. I imagine he's not very happy here at all. There are just so many things happening on the board. Okay, that's not a threat at this stage. Here, king takes. You can't take this because the rook's defending. Okay, rook g6, finding the best move on the board. The evaluation's now at plus 15. That is like completely lost. The threat over here, of course, you're attacking the rook. You're threatening queen g7. What do you do over here? Like a rook to h7. What do we? Rook to h. Okay, takes the rook. And we have a champion. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Chess Warrior getting the win. That is absolutely insane. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Well done, well done. What a win. So that is GM Norbek Abdusattorov, who is... Okay, I don't want to call it yet. Because maybe the maths doesn't work out, but I'm 90% sure that Chess Warrior is our champion. GM Norbek Abdusattorov. Very, very big win over there. I mean, a convincing win as well. Beating Hikaru and really deserving of that title. Let us go and look at some of the games further down the list after that. I mean, there was someone who said earlier that a lot of the games were quite boring because they were just a bunch of draws. That was not a boring game at all. That was such an exciting final game. So very, very well done for the win and for delivering content like that. Here we have Alexander Moskalenko getting a win, which I think probably puts him in third place. Probably puts him on third place on tiebreakers. Hikaru should still get second place, and I mean a very well-deserved second place. He had a good tournament as well. Did he get his title this year? Amazing. Yes, it is nice to see some younger players, or newer players, I don't know the age, but newer players coming up and really being able to take on the big names in chess. Here we have another game. It is Fair Chess versus Grigor, and we've got an endgame where white is an exchange up, so it should be not too difficult to win this. You just need to make sure that there are no tricks with the knight, and unfortunately, okay, this is very unfortunate. There we go. Okay, 1 second on the clock. A bad position overall. You weren't going to lose the knight, but you were going to lose some more pawns. So a resignation over there seemed to be a fair result. Let's go and have a look over here. We have Merman versus Becker. And complicated to evaluate, we have two pieces for the rook, equal pawns. Black's king is a bit crazy over there. I'm wondering, fortunately this knight is defending, else we would have a nice pin over here. The knight can't move and it's attacked by two pieces. It looks as though black is going to go pawn hunting, but white is not letting any counterplay happen. So white just hanging on to things, and this pawn is probably going to be really strong in future, assuming white can hold on to it. And those knights are doing a very, very good defensive job. Did Norbek get his title last year? Still very recent for a Grandmaster title, and it must be a very big win for him to win the title Tuesday today. I don't think he's won before. Maybe chat will know if he has. 13 seconds left on the clock. So easy to make a mistake over here. Can white manage to... White is starting to push the pawn. You've got past pawns exist to be pushed, and there we go. A sneaky little move over here. You can't promote because the bishop is covering the promotion square. So white is starting to bring the knights closer. Fortunately, the king doing a very good job of defending this square. So something like this is not an option. But now we have some counterplay. It's now gone down to equal. Black is starting to push this pawn. We can promote here, but there are going to be some problems here. Oh my goodness. And what? Confusion. The bar is absolutely dancing around. Black is now going to get the promoted pawn. There's no way to stop this pawn. That is absolutely heartbreaking. Such a sore loss for white. Should have been winning earlier, went back to a draw, and then this is just an example of how the 1 second increment is tough. It's very easy to flag, and it's very easy to make mistakes, especially because you usually find yourself in an endgame. It is very, very tough. All right, this is one of our last games going on. It is Mishinik versus Denlaz, each on 8 points out of 10, which is really impressive. So I don't know if they're in with a shot of top 3 or getting prizes. And Denlaz picking up the win. Very nicely done over there. Here we have Eric Ronka versus Yarovskovsky Alexander. And I'm guessing just a draw. The queens are on the board, so there are a lot of checks. But if black can escape all of the checks, then there are some very serious mating threats on the board. 2018 feels like it was 10 years ago. 2018, that was the year of the last chess Olympiad. It does seem like very, very long ago. So that's still fairly recently for the title. And white gets the extra queen. Oh no, black should have just gone for the repetition. There was a repetition so easily on the board there. White is now going to get the win. 12 seconds, more than enough time to get that win. Very nicely done. And there we go. We have our final results. Chess Warrior with a very, very well-deserved win. 10 points out of 11, taking down the big man himself, Hikaru, in the last round. And in second place, after a decent tournament, we'll see how happy he was with his performance, but 9.5 points out of 11. You can see what a tough tournament it has been. And then third on tie breaks, Alexander Moskalenko, also having a very, very good tournament. He was up at the top the entire event, stumbled a couple of times, but still 9.5, very, very impressive. I think we can look at the standings just very quickly, the rest of the top 10 before we wrap it up. So we have Zkid in 4th place, Denlaz in 5th place, Dropstone in 6th, Fairchess, another person we saw a lot of, in 7th place, and Merman also on 9 points out of 11. So a lot of people with 9 points out of 11. That was our top 8. Very, very well played to all of the participants. They put up a very, very good fight. And I think we got some high quality chess and some very entertaining chess today as well. And that last game especially, I'm so glad we saw the entire game. They did such a good job of delivering some good chess. But that is it for today. Thank you very much for joining tonight's Title Tuesday event. As you know, Title Tuesday takes place every single Tuesday, or perhaps you didn't know that, but now you do. So make sure to tune in next week to see if our winner will be able to defend his title, win twice in a row, which would be quite a great accomplishment. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. I was your host, Rebecca Selkirk from #Chess. I hope to see you around at some stage in future. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.